Hello, everyone. This is Gruesome Herzog. My very special guest today is director, writer, producer Cody Knotts. He also owns a newspaper out in Washington, PA, and he has a new movie, his only movie, his first movie. Right now it's called Lucifers. How you doing, Cody?
Oh, wonderful.
Thanks for coming on.
Oh, thank you.
The reason why I got in contact with you is because of Andrew Ross. He's been talking good about this film and yourself. So I figured, why not? Let's get Cody on here and talk about some new projects. The area that you live in, obviously, I said before, is Washington, PA. It's like, what, about an hour from Pittsburgh, roughly? Is that what it was?
Actually, about a half hour south of Pittsburgh.
Okay. And I am a diehard Pittsburgh Steeler fan, so it kind of hits home for me. Yik. But anyway...
So lay your hand on a Pittsburgh Steeler fan, and I think you'll finally understand. Troy Daniels put it best.
But you have a very interesting story here that you started filming, and what I'd like to do is give the listeners an idea of what it's about, and possibly, if you can, is mention who's in it, and then if you got any, interesting sites or that's getting filmed at, or any interesting stories, you can go ahead. Okay?
Well, we're trying to show a realistic portrayal of exorcism, not where people are spitting goo or torturing, or nails are coming out of their mouths or things like that. But one of the problems that I've seen in every exorcism film is, and this comes from personal experience growing up in the Pentecostal church and having been in a position where we've prayed over people and dealt with people that had these issues, is that there's no purpose to the demon other than the torture of the victim. And if you are accepting of the idea of good and evil, God and Satan, then the purpose would be to lead people to damnation. It would not be to be obvious and walk around and show, look how scary I am, but instead to be walking amongst us, leading us to our own destructions through our desires, that fight between desire, good and evil.
Okay. So basically what you're doing is you're making something completely, I should say, different and more realistic, basically, right?
That's the goal. I mean, with any story, you're going to have a fictionalized element, and you're
Sure.
going to raise the volume because you're only watching for a short period of time.
Right.
But what would take place in 9 days in our film would probably take place over years between the characters. But the idea being that the demon isn't wanting to be found. It isn't making itself obvious. It doesn't need to torture the body it's using. It's a tool for the demon. And it's as if every film is more interested in being scary than it is in making the demon more realistic. What is its goals? And I find that much more terrifying when I see something that could be my neighbor next door who's manipulating me, or in our case, a young girl who's very attractive who's manipulating people. It's played by Emily Cortez from Pittsburgh, who is manipulating people to their destruction through sex.
Right.
In sexual desire.
Interesting. Now, you have a cast lined up, obviously, correct?
Yes, we've cast everything but like one or two very tiny parts that are just like day players.
Okay.
Andrew Ross playing our lead. He's playing Jacob Wilcox, an investigator sent by the church who has the gift of discernment, which we're doing Christian horror. And when I say that, it's not this sanitized, boring stuff that you watch on television that is playing on the Lifetime channel or something,
right?
Or Hallmark. It is the idea that this is exactly like any other horror film. The difference being is that the people who have faith, and that Christ does and actually exist as much as the demon does. Roth's character is he drinks, he womanizes, he isn't the best person as what we view as a good person. He doesn't abuse people. He doesn't mistreat people.
Right.
He has problems with God because God's given him a gift of discernment where he can see evil spirits, which is taken from Thessalonians. But he, in the process, views it almost like a curse because he feels that he has to do what God wants him to do, and he can't have the life he wants.
Okay.
So he rebels with alcohol and rebels with picking up women in bars because he can't have that life where he has a nice family and a picket fence. He views God as discipline and order, not love.
All right.
So he's playing the lead. Emily Cortez is playing the possessed girl, Susie Schaefer, and she becomes possessed because her father had a seance to talk to her dead mother. He doesn't have a medium. He screws it up. His daughter becomes possessed in the process. It's probably one of the best scenes in the movie. It's done a flashback late in the film that shows this seance and when she becomes first possessed by the demon. And in fact, she's possessed by Lilith, who's the first wife of Adam.
Yes.
And so we're using Lilith as part of the film, and we have a lot of biblical allegory hidden within it. It's not so much that it's banging you on top of the head. The idea is that you can watch it and could care less about it, and you can watch a hot girl manipulate men to their destruction, and women. Or you can watch, and get the deeper meanings that are going on. For example, the demon leaves. One of the things that's part of the Catholic rite is the demon will leave a body by a physical manifestation. Okay? That's never really been shown in film.
Right.
The rite played around with it with nails coming out, but the demon didn't leave. Which I found ludicrous. Why are nails coming out? Why can't it just be what it's supposed to be, some physical showing? We're going to have her leave by the menstrual path, because being Lilith, a child of Eve, would reject through the difference between the two, which is original sin.
Oh, okay. And
so we're using that as symbology of Eve's body, one of her children rejecting Lilith when she's thrown, when Roth's able to, his character Jacob is able to exorcise the demon from her. We have a really good supporting cast. We have Camera Barlotta, who was in almost every 1980 and 90s TV show for one episode. She was in Hardcastle, McCormick, and Love Boat, and a whole host of those wonderful TV sitcoms.
Excellent.
And she happened to marry and move. She was from L.A. and moved here.
Oh, wow.
After marrying. She married a very wealthy attorney from Western Pennsylvania and moved here. She was in Pretty in Pink. She was one of the girls in the volleyball thing. So we're very fortunate to have her involved. And she's playing the mother of Tommy, who is the boyfriend of this possessed girl. And Tommy's played by Sean Sheltman, who is from Pittsburgh. And Sean, his character Tommy eventually kills himself under the influence of the demon. He's not possessed. We're showing demonic oppression, which again hasn't been shown. The idea of the demon having influence over you and manipulating you. Our demon doesn't throw people against walls. She doesn't twist their heads off. She doesn't kill them herself. She gets them to kill them. She gets them to kill themselves by their actions and their decision making.
Wow.
She has to manipulate them to death.
That's a good storyline. That's a clever storyline.
And I mean, for example, Sean, the character who's playing Tommy, videotapes he has a desire for the preacher's wife. He videotapes his mother having sex with this woman. Now, they were all influenced from the seance, and they were not in a position where they would have done this. But their own desires got heightened, and the demon, in the backstory, which is only shown and told in backstory, Tommy's mother and the preacher's wife, Rachel, have an affair. Oh. And the son videotapes his own mother because he's convinced to do so by his girlfriend. We're portraying a woman who's vicious in a way, again, that you wouldn't go, well, she's demon-possessed. You just go, she's a bitch.
Right. Right.
But the actuality is that there is a demon in there that's manipulating these people, and they're unaware of it as they're coming under this influence. And we have very few, like I would say, overt. In the seance we do, because they first come under control, so they can't move, which was partly a compromise with a very small space. We found out that if the people moved around, it got very complicated. Right. So we made it so they were frozen in place as they were under demonic control. That's the only time anything of that nature happens, when she first talks to them as the demon, and we introduce how the people were before she came into their lives.
Okay.
And so we used that scene to do that. But that was a compromise we had to make. We filmed in a 200-plus-year-old basement, or like cellar, that has wooden or stone floor and stone walls, and just a very, very odd place. And it only had a 5'10" ceiling, so it's very creepy in and of itself. Real cobwebs and big spiders, and
Now, I heard that this is being filmed in an abandoned town or something.
We are filming in a town that has probably lost 2/3 of its population,
Okay.
which is the town of Denora, which has been very good to us, and their mayor, Chummy Lignelli, has been incredible. He found us. They actually have 8 abandoned churches in the town that the borough had to take over.
Holy shit!
So we were looking for a church we could film because of the nature of the what we were doing. We weren't going to be getting a church that was active. We had to find a church building that we could use.
Right.
So, and Denora is letting us film some of the things on the street. It's actually the home of Ken Griffey Jr., Ken Griffey Sr., Stan Musial.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah.
It's Reebok, or Nike once had it in an ad for Ken Griffey for president about 15 years ago. They showed the big Denora sign. It's a town that once was, it's actually most famous for the smog. It's the town that smog came in and almost choked everybody to death in the 50s.
Oh, my God.
There's a big museum to the Denora smog, which you can see in the back of one of the scenes. So it's kind of a neat little town, but we're filming there. We're filming in the house that we're using is in Taylorstown, which is a tiny little town of 600-some people. It's actually the farmhouse I grew up in. We sold,
Okay.
and the owner let me go back to it if no one's living there. So it's an abandoned house, and it's gated, so it's great for filming. You can close the gate behind, and nobody can get up in onto the set. And there's nothing nearby, so we don't have any sound issues.
Wow.
Other than our own people. It's 88 years. Actually, between that and the next door farm, there's 300 acres that we have access to. So, you know, and then we have one more location we have to find, which is a bowling alley for a short scene, but it might not end up being a bowling alley when it's done, but
Right.
if we don't find one.
Well, that's interesting to know. Now, where is Denora near? I mean, what's the nearest town it's near? I mean, a big town. I mean, as far as a thriving town.
It's south of Pittsburgh. It's in the same boat as all these towns are. It's on the Mon Valley. It's right on the Monongahela River.
Okay.
Because we also have one location in Monongahela, PA, which is the home of Joe Montana. Like just down the road. I mean, it's literally 3 miles down the road, and that's where Montana grew up.
That's weird.
And so did Governor Daniels, that's running for president from Indiana.
Oh, no
He's a resident of our little county originally. He grew up here. But we're really known for sports. Monongahela's very proud of the Joe Montana connection.
Yeah, right.
They all played for Ringgold High School, and we produced more than a couple guys that played in the NFL. So, but they're old mill towns that are falling apart. Unfortunately, they've lost just in the last 10 years. The area's lost about 20% of its population on their river.
No kidding.
And it's there's a lot of homes just sitting there with nobody in them. And Monongahela is much better. It's very nice looking. Denora is in bad shape.
Wow.
But the town is incredible to us. And their mayor has been mayor there for almost 40 years. He's a neat fella.
Yeah.
So they've just been great. But yeah, so those are our main filming locations. It's going to all be filmed, it looks like, in Washington County, we've had parts of The Dark Half filmed here. Night of the Living Dead, the remake, was filmed here. It was actually, the Night of the Living Dead was filmed from our principal set location about 2 miles apart from it.
Okay.
The remake.
All right.
It's just over the hill from my old farmhouse. I could walk over a hill and be down onto that property.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. So they filmed it all right there. So they had a cemetery down the road, and then because the remake was all completely filmed in Washington County.
Oh, no shit. Yeah, I knew that. Yeah. Now
we like horror.
Now, George A. Romero. Now, what area was he in that living?
He's in Pittsburgh. I mean, in Savini, we're using a lot of kids from the Douglas School, young adults who graduated from Savini's makeup school.
Okay.
And for in Monessen, which is right across the river from Denora. They're right beside each other.
Okay.
And actually we have Cody Rock, who's doing the special effects, and Amy Tidwell we got doing hair and makeup on it, and they've done a fabulous job. They're great to work with, and we just got a guy who's doing sound with us from their school, so we've been very lucky to have a relationship with them and be able to use their students. And these are all graduates, but and they're easy to work with, which is great, and they do a good job, and they put their heart and soul into it. You know, they're definitely not doing this for the money. That's
right.
You know, they're doing it because they care about what they're doing.
Exactly. What
would have these issues?
Right.
And I ran for public office, so it wasn't like I was out there talking, going, oh, by the way, I've encountered people with demons, because people will go, okay, you're off your rocker. But there's this idea that's went on in the church, and I studied to be a Pentecostal pastor. I'm actually playing the pastor in it, who I always make a joke. I said we needed someone who could do the Pentecostal pastor preaching bit, but also be middle-aged and overweight. I said I qualify for all of them.
Nuts.
And then again, there's another one of the issues I had that we don't see. Every time we show an evangelical, they're shown in a negative light. If you watch films, they're always a charlatan.
Yep.
That, like Last Exorcist, he doesn't really believe anything.
Right.
Or they're Robert Duvall in The Apostle. He's got all these issues, and he's on the run from things he did wrong. Or Steve Martin's portrayal where he did. And the worst part for me is, having grown up in the church, not just that they are portrayed badly, but they don't get the cadence right. You know, we there's a way of speaking that goes on within those churches, and a way of doing things that other people don't hear. Like, we use the phrase principalities of darkness, which is used in the Bible, but you don't hear it very often. And actually, Roth's character says it a couple times. He warns people of the principalities of darkness. And those terms, those phrases aren't used. And so we actually sat down with the people involved in production, and they said, Cody, you're not going to find someone who can do what you grew up doing for 20-some years of your life. And I said, okay, I'll do it. I wasn't planning on doing it. I had no intention of doing it. I thought, well, we'll do some thing where we say a line somewhere just to do it.
Right.
And the idea being, where are we going to find somebody who can do a realistic portrayal of them, who's going to be one involved in a film and be seduced on screen, which is a problem for a lot of Pentecostals and evangelicals. They're good people, and we wanted to show them not in a negative light, but in a realistic light, not good or evil.
Right.
You know, that there's failures. In fact, the compromise the pastor makes is the Jimmy Swaggart compromise. He doesn't have sex with the girl, but he does watch and entertain himself. And, that's what Swaggart did.
Right.
Saying that wasn't sex. And so we actually shamelessly stole from that, I guess, and said, that's a great compromise for the pastor in this situation. He's got an extremely attractive young girl. He's not married. His wife's dead. But he's not allowed to commit fornication. You could use that term very often. So he falls somewhere in the middle. And somewhere he's sensing there's something wrong. Why is this girl attracted to me? Which is why we didn't want a really attractive person playing Bill. We didn't want it to be, oh, look, he's just a good-looking older man. We wanted it to be, there's something wrong here. Why is this really hot young woman going after this guy?
Right. I see your point. Yep.
It might be for the power in the church, which is partly implied. We're actually going to take the church scene where the monologue happens with the minister, and we're going to try and one-shot it, which is going to be very difficult because it actually ends up involving 4 people. But we're going to pull back with the dolly and have him come down and into the audience and start to tell people, and if I start doing it, don't laugh at me, but you start to tell people about the Lord Jesus Christ and how he's going to bring salvation unto you.
that's my whole job here is to get some of these movies out there for people to watch and get interested in. So I think what you said in this movie is really going to be throwing a lot of people's interest. So I really do thank you for coming on, and I wish you the best of luck. And hopefully, if things go well, I'll be out there in April to see you guys.
Can't wait to meet you.
All right, brother. Thank you very
All right,
much.
thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.